are apt and to rejoice. Come in.
Yeah.
Sit there.
Are we ready? Okay, we're ready. Sorry.
Thank you. Good morning. You can hear me okay? All right, good. Well, welcome everyone to the Unitarian Universalist Church of Spokane, where our mission is to join together to create a nourishing liberal religious home and to champion justice, diversity, and environmental stewardship in our wider world. Or as we say in short, to create community, find meaning, and work for justice. Welcome, as always, to each and every one of you, to those of you in the room with us, to those of you who are streaming with us, to those of you who are on Zoom with us. We're so glad to have all of you, and we embrace all that you bring with you, all of your unique beliefs, your background, your lifestyle, your experiences, your differences, all that helps make you who you are is welcome here today. So welcome to one and all. I also want to let you know, if you have not read The Sun yet, that our music director, Deb Jackman, has decided to retire. And her official retirement date will not be until the end of August, but she has already begun her usual summer sabbatical, so you're probably not going to see her, but I do hope that we have an opportunity to have a big retirement celebration for Deb and to thank her for almost 34 years as a installation in our congregation and community. So congratulations to Deb. And I also want to welcome our, at least for now, our summer song leader, Madeline McNeil, whose beautiful voice you got to hear getting us started, our service started this morning. So we're really looking forward to getting to know Madeline, and I'm sure you are as well, but just a little bit. Madeline began her career actually working on a pre-med degree, but eventually reconsidered. She initially turned to alternative medicine and spirituality, but ended up at the music department at Western Washington University. And today she performs solo and group shows throughout the Northwest as a singer and an artist philosopher. And she does have a lot of philosophical depth. I think she and I connect on some areas broader than just music, for sure. Not that music is just, but you know what I'm saying. And we're really fortunate, I feel, to have such a talented and accomplished musical artist with us for at least the next couple of months. So, Madeline, thanks again so much for being here, and welcome to you. All right, I also want to welcome our Zoom attendees. And let's see, you're up on screen. And let's see, I think I do see Stephen Palmer. I wanted to personally thank Stephen for filling in. Not for filling in last Sunday, but for being our guest speaker last Sunday all the way from Italy. Stephen, thank you so much.
Thank you, Tom. It was a pleasure.
Yeah,
A challenge, but a pleasure. We have 14 people on Zoom today, and some new folks as well.
excellent. Well, it's wonderful to have all of you. And Stephen, I understand that you are going to be coming back stateside soon. You were speaking all the way from Italy last week.
I am actually stateside now.
Oh, you're stateside already. Great. Well, welcome home. And let's see, Joyce.
Okay, thank you.
Joyce, are you in our? Yes, there's Joyce. I wanted to give Joyce another opportunity to let folks know about her upcoming NAUA course.
Pacific time, I'll be offering a class, Introduction to the Concept and the Materials available about the race amity movement. So please join us then.
Great, and we missed the first part of what you were saying. If you would just give the date and time one more time, we'd appreciate it.
The date is the 18th of July, and it's 4:30 to 6:30 Pacific Daylight Time.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much for doing that, and welcome again to everyone who's on Zoom, to all of those who are streaming with us as well, and again to everyone in the room this morning. And let's take a few moments now at the start of our service to welcome one another.
I think we can unmute and say hello to each other while they're doing the same.
All right, thank you. And there's more opportunities always during social hour to connect and communicate more with one another, so please stay around for that. We are going to move forward now with the lighting of our chalice, the symbol of our faith, a symbol of our unity and our solidarity, of our openness and our inclusion, of our community and our individual uniqueness. May this small flame be our offering of warmth to those who are cold and alone, and a light to those in darkness. May it be a flame that ignites justice in our world and a beacon of hope to those in need, and may it reflect at least a spark of truth wherever truth has been lost, and cast a healthy shadow of doubt wherever it's been found. And I want to thank Candace Schmidt, who was scheduled to be our lay leader today, but was not feeling well today, and was kind enough to send me her selections. So these are the words we'll be sharing are from Candace Schmidt today. And for those who don't know how it works with our lay leaders, I do not select the readings. I figure if lay leaders are going to be up here leading, I want them to be fully present and to have readings that reflect their wisdom and their search and their interest. So that's why the readings differ so much from one Sunday to the next, because there's some personality in them. So thank you, Candace, for these. And thanks, Karen, who's going to be helping with lighting our artifacts today as well. So, okay, this is our opening words from Ovid's Metamorphoses. As wave is driven by wave, and each pursues the wave ahead, so time flies on and flies and follows, always, forever, and new. What was before is left behind, what never was is now, and every passing moment is renewed.
Spirit of life, come unto me. Sing in my heart all the stirrings of compassion. Blow in the wind, rise in the sea, move in the hand, giving life the shape of justice. Roots hold me close, wings set me free. Spirit of life, come to me, come to me. Spirit of life, come unto me. Sing in my heart all the stirrings of compassion. Blow in the wind, rise in the sea, move in the hand, giving life the shape of justice. Roots hold me close, wings set me free. Spirit of life, come to me, come to me.
Thank you so much. We are now going to kindle our candles of care, and Kieran, if you would be kind enough to help us light our candles. I did not receive any specific request today, but as we have been, we'll begin on behalf of the people of Ukraine who are suffering from devastating impacts of war, and everyone else in that region as well. And I know I've told this story before, but I just did it again. There's an app on my VR headset that allows us to travel about, look at different 360 videos, and there's a new video up of Ukraine before and after pictures, and it's just devastating to see those incredibly old, beautiful buildings just demolished for no reason, And there's people living in that. And there's a lot of suffering going on in the world, and we could spend all morning mentioning everyone worthy of receiving a candle of care from us, but this seems a very imminent situation, and I don't know how to stop until the war stops. But boy, it's been a rough week in our nation with some of the Supreme Court decisions that were made this week. And I know there's a lot of people worried, and there's a lot of people hurting, and there's a lot of people wondering what that's going to mean. So even though I did not get any special requests, I think we can kindle all of these candles on behalf of everyone we're concerned about, everything we're concerned about these days, as well as celebrating some of the things that we want to celebrate. So let's move into our usual moment of silence, and as always, if there's someone or even something on your mind, you're welcome to name it aloud at this time. Those named aloud and those embraced in our silence, and all those who are suffering in our world at this hour, we hold in our community with compassion. And we now gratefully give and receive this morning's offering, which helps sustain this community and our mission to the larger world. Thank you so much, Todd. Todd Milne, who is usually in our, I shouldn't say, it has become usual for Todd Milne to be in our sound booth where Shelley is filling in this morning. But Todd really was introduced to our congregation as one of our guest musicians and has been a guest musician off and on ever since I've been here. In fact, I think you played the first service that I was here. Yeah.
I think it might have been my first day too.
It's your first day too, so yeah, they only let Todd's in, in groups. Otherwise, we can't get in the door.
Great conjunction.
As it was a great conjunction, and we don't. Yeah, we really. I don't ever want us to forget that this is really who Todd is. I mean, he's great with sound and great with AV, but he's a musician. He's got a creative heart and a beautiful soul, and this is how he expresses it. So we have to have you up here more often, Todd. Yes. Okay, and now it is time for our story for all ages. So maybe this will give you a hint as to who I brought today. Does anybody know what this creature might be? What is it? Roadkill. No. A possum, yeah. Sometimes called a possum. I don't know if they have possums in the Spokane area. Have anybody? I've never seen one.
It's a little cold. It kind of freezes their ears off.
Oh, does it? A little cold for possums. Well, it is believed they migrated to North America from the south, the southern part of the continent at some point. But they're really one of my favorite animals, and I like to talk with them. So this is just going to be a guest to talk about, especially when the kids come, if the kids come second service. But in the south, possums were about the most frequent wild animal that I ran into in Kentucky. And they're very shy. They mainly come out at night. And officially they're called an opossum, but got shortened to possum. Their tail, I held it up by its tail. It doesn't hurt a possum. They actually do hang by their very strong tails. And one of the things that's really amazing to me about possums is they've been around for so long, apparently unchanged, for at least 20 million years, maybe 25 or so million years. Nobody's 100% sure. It's just such a perfectly adapted animal that it hasn't had to change. And yet it still is in a lot of places around the world, various species of them. So they can teach us something about being adaptable and longevity. It is also the only marsupial in North America, marsupial being an animal that carries its young in a pouch to let them finish gestating after birth or maturing after birth. It's a very unusual creature to the early explorers, to be polite, of the Americas. John Smith saw an opossum for the first time over 400 years ago. And he'd never seen anything like it, and he described it to others by saying it has the head of a pig and the tail of a rat, wherever that tail is, and is as big as a cat. So you imagine it's almost like a platypus, a sort of mythical creature some might not believe even existed. And the word opossum is actually a Native American word that means something like white dog or dog-like. So opossum is kind of a word for white. And if you ever see them in the wild and they see you, they're going to hiss. And their teeth are very jagged. They don't have nice, clean teeth. They have all of them are razor-sharp teeth. And they go all the way from one end of the mouth to the other. And so it looks like a very fierce creature and sounds like a very creature, but they're actually pretty shy and pretty harmless. And some who have been rescued have even made very loving pets. You've probably heard that possums play dead. They don't actually play dead. When they are threatened to the point where their lives are threatened, there's actually a chemical reaction that occurs that causes them to faint. And it causes them to become stiff. And it causes them to emit a smell as if they have been decaying for some time. And when the creature comes up to eat them and says, "Oh my God, this thing's already rotten, I can't eat that." And then a few minutes to an hour later, they come out of it and go, "Oh, the bear is gone." Thank goodness. So they actually do have a little death. I mean, they slow down, their heartbeat slows down, their pulse slows down. You could even pick them up and they're stiff. So very interesting survival technique for a timid creature. Now, what I wanted to really tell you about is a story, an encounter I had with a possum one time during the daylight. It's unusual to see a possum in the daylight, but we had a little, 4-foot-high chain link fence between the backyard and the front yard, or at least it gave the illusion that there were 2 yards, but it was a fence nevertheless. And the possum was in the backyard, and they're very slow, awkward animals. And the possum climbed up one side from the backyard, climbed all the way up to the top and started straddling the top of the fence, which was very awkward. If you can imagine, it's kind of doing this on all fours. And it suddenly saw me standing there. They don't have great eyesight. So suddenly it realizes there's this giant beast in front of it. And it couldn't turn around because then it would have exposed its backside to me, and if I was a predator, could have leaped on it. And it couldn't climb down because it was so slow and awkward, so it just started straddling that fence trying to figure out what it was going to do. And instead of playing dead, it just turned away. As if by not seeing me it meant I wasn't there. And I just laughed at the little thing, and of course I walked away so it could move about its day. But I thought that was also a very interesting technique for avoiding danger, is just pretending it's not there. So probably not the best way for us to go about lives, but something to think about as we consider the many challenges before us, that we probably need to take them on rather than turn away. So thanks for the lessons of the possum this morning. Thank you. Okay, and here are the words to this morning's meditation, also given to us by Candace Schmidt, from Eugene Genlin's Experiencing and the Creation of Meaning. People have always fallen into the trap of interpreting their experience only through stereotyped concepts, whereby the actual stream of experience is largely missed. Just recall, for example, the battle the Impressionist painters fought to convince people that snow does not always look white. For our reading today, I'm going to ask you to join me in a responsive reading, number 660. Number 660 from the back of your gray hymnal. And actually, Madeline, if you don't mind, I'm going to ask if you would go to the microphone and be one of our respondents, but this way our friends who are streaming with us and Zooming with us will also be able to enjoy the entire reading. Thank you. So I'll begin and ask the congregation, along with Madeline, to be our respondents this morning. Why should we live in such a hurry and waste of life?
We are determined to be starved before we are hungry.
I wish to live deliberately, to front only the essential facts of life.
I wish to learn what life has to teach, and not, when I come to die, discover that I have not lived.
I do not wish to live what is not life. Living is so dear.
Nor do I wish to practice resignation, unless it is quite necessary.
I wish to live deep and suck out all the marrow of life.
I want to cut a broad swath, to drive life into a corner and reduce it to its lowest terms.
If it proves to be mean, then to get the whole and genuine meanness of it and publish its meanness to the world.
Or if it is sublime, to know it by experience and to be able to give a true account of it.
Thank you, Todd. So today is the first Sunday of July, marking the start of what is for us another church year. And I want to begin, as I usually do, with my annual Preaching to the Preacher sermon. My sermons are never a dispensation of what I consider my own knowledge. They are rather an expression of my current exploration and of the disciplines and issues that I'm most interested in or concerned about. Hence, my sermons are a reflection of my own continuing search for truth and meaning, hence the name Preaching to the Preacher. So you're going to hear a synopsis of some of these today. And if you're thinking, oh my gosh, I've tried to come every Sunday all year, I could just come once a year and get the whole thing. So now, occasionally someone lets me know that they think I should be expressing the subjects that they're most interested in and concerned about, but that would not be healthy for any of us. All preachers should be aware that they are often mirrors for others, but we should shun any attempts to make our pulpits acceptable for such projections, or an acceptable place for projections. The pulpit, especially a free pulpit, as in our tradition, has only one official occupant. It is the borrowed property of its installed minister, who bears the singular duty to protect and keep it as a place of honesty, no matter how welcome or unwelcome the words might be that come from it. The best way I know to do this is to speak authentically as an individual, which means speaking from my own experience, my own learning, and my own interest. The benefit to everyone else is that I am doing real and fresh research throughout the year, the results of which I process through my own critical thinking skills, logic, and reflections before sharing them with you. In fact, as I said in my sermon last September entitled, "My Pulpit Mine," this is not a drive-through pulpit in which I ask, may I take your order, please? My sermons come from my heart and my mind, and they are an expression of myself as sure as your music is an expression of yourself and your music and songs and your art and anything else you do. The personal benefit of this for me is that it is a major part of my job to continue searching for truth and meaning. Imagine getting paid to do that. It means I get to work on growing and evolving and discovering and sharing a bit of my journey with you, which I hope most of you can relate to, as our differing journeys often face some of the same immediate challenges, as well as all of life's perennial questions. So in this sense, I really am preaching to myself. Sermon preparation is for me but an opportunity to organize and reflect upon the information and insights that I'm finding. In years past, my sermon topics have varied as I have a lot of interest, and I still do. But these days, I find myself gravitating towards fewer topics, mostly because of the turmoil that our liberal religion is currently experiencing in my potential role in helping to prevent it from becoming extinct, possibly even to thrive for the first time in decades. That's my goal. So I've spent much of the past year studying the deep roots of our liberal religious tradition in order to better understand and articulate its rich history and its essential values, not just for us, but for the world. I'm still engaging in this course of study and have a stack of books I hope to read during the next few months, or maybe the next months. I don't know, a few will be a word. These include titles like The Pre-Socratic Philosophers by G.S. Kirk and J.E. Raven, The World of the Early Greek Philosophers by J.B. Wilbur and H.J. Allen, right? Because the Enlightenment in which our religion began is rooted in the pre-Socratic philosophers 2,600 years ago, which were rediscovered during the Renaissance, which you hear me say too often, and the Renaissance flourished during the Enlightenment. So let's see, a world lit only by fire, the medieval mind and the Renaissance, right? So moving through history. Gloria Fierro's The Humanistic Tradition, the European Renaissance, the Reformation, and Global Encounter. An Introduction to Democratic Theory by Henry Mayo, The Philosophy of the Enlightenment by Ernst Cassirer, The Seduction of Unreason, The Intellectual Romance with Fascism from Nietzsche to Postmodernism by Richard Wolin, and A History of Unitarianism in Transylvania, England, and America by Earl Morse Wilbur, to name a few. So I guess that tells you what you'll likely be hearing about during the next few months. These titles don't include all that I've already delved into these past few years that have informed many of the sermons that I've given throughout the year since last July. Even sermons as playful as Puppets and Persons and The Ethics of Uncontrolled Stops were ultimately about lifting up the principle of individual freedom that is at the heart of Unitarianism. The first of these, you may recall, involved a series of vignettes in which various puppet characters helped to illustrate my points. Since it was an intergenerational service, Charlie McCarthy showed up to translate my explanation of philosopher Immanuel Kant's categorical imperative into language that even kids could understand. It went something like this. Immanuel Kant came to believe that it is never right to treat others as a means to our ends, but as an end within themselves. After conferring with me in a few whispers, Charlie said, "Well, why didn't you just say so in the first place? The old man didn't think it was nice to boss other people around." He believed that people should have the right to govern themselves and pursue their own interest, I continued. He thought that people should be free. Very good. Nothing is required for this enlightenment, however, except freedom. And the freedom in question is the least harmful of all, namely, the freedom to use reason publicly in all matters. I've got this. The old man said, everyone should be free to think and speak for themselves. Very good. And that the public use of one's reason must always be free, and it alone can bring about the enlightenment among mankind. And it really sucks when people can't. Very good, Charlie. Thank you. So, of course, that was not really Charlie McCarthy. He's much better looking than my hand. So, a quick word search indicates that I referred to Kant's categorical imperative in half a dozen sermons during the past year, including this one. The imperative states, as I alluded to, that one should never be treated as a means to someone else's ends, but should be considered an end within themselves. And this is one articulation of the Enlightenment's humanistic ethic. Right? That is at the base, the foundation of Enlightenment thinking, this humanistic ethic, the notion that human welfare, including individual welfare and freedom, because to be well we need to be free, must be our top moral priority. During the French Revolution, it was reinstated as the inherent worth and dignity of every person, which is the first principle, or at least has been, of Unitarian Universalism. And as you have often heard me say over the years, it is expressed by my favorite modern thinker, Erich Fromm, as the sole criterion of ethical thinking being human welfare, and that the unfolding and growth of every person should be the aim of all social and political activities. It's the same thing, the same principle stated three different ways. That is what liberalism is about. If liberalism is not about that, then it is not liberalism. However we put it, this is the principle that is most central to our liberal values. And the way human dignity is maintained, as you've also heard me say a lot throughout the years, or throughout the past year in particular, but these past 4 years, is through systems, governments, and cultures that promote freedom, reason, and tolerance. I won't go into the meaning of those right now. I will, real quickly. Freedom, remember, is not just the freedom to think and to speak for ourselves, which is vital, of course, but also the freedom to participate in the benefits of our society without prejudice or obstruction. Reason certainly calls for the necessity of having data and facts and empirical evidence and sound reasoning behind what it is we believe and what we argue and what we accept as true, but also that as a society we trust that you have the reason to think for yourselves. Right? We don't need dogmas and dictates to tell us how to think. One of the marks of being human is our ability to reason. So there's also that twofold prong of reason. And then tolerance is, if you think about it, not a very high bar, because it's saying we don't necessarily have to like each other, we don't have to agree with each other, we don't even have to talk to each other, but we have to tolerate each other. And that is all that is necessary. That's all we need to have a peaceful society. So reason, freedom, and tolerance are the social mechanisms through which to demonstrate our respect for the welfare of humanity and the welfare of the individual. It is how we show respect for the inherent worth and dignity of every person, and I like to add, all peoples. Okay, where was I? So believing in the importance of these values also requires us to have a positive view of humanity, right? If you want human welfare and individual unfolding, that is preceded by a positive view of humanity. And I said positive, not Pollyannish. Some people can be real jerks some of the time, or maybe even most of the time. But most of us also want naturally to do the right thing and to care for others. Most of the people I know, and not just the people in this church, most of the people I run into in this community, from conservatives to liberal, want to be good and care about those whom they see in trouble. And this was really the main point of the other sermon I just mentioned, the ethics of uncontrolled stops, which was something new to me when I came to Spokane. And that sermon was ultimately about how this positive view of humanity and human nature and agency has also long been fundamental to Unitarianism. Here's what I said. This is uniquely so of American Unitarianism in particular. It was born in argument against the New Birth movement during the so-called Great Awakening of the 18th century, based upon the idea that all humans are born in a natural state of depravity because of original sin and must therefore be born again. That's the New Birth movement. But this idea was challenged by the Congregational minister Charles Chauncey, who went on to become a Unitarian, who argued instead that human beings are born with the capacity for both sin and righteousness, for both evil and good. Even if we're not always good, there is goodness within us, which was a radically heretical idea at the time, especially after centuries of the doctrine of original sin. Now, tempted as I am because of how passionate I currently remain about this, I need not go much further into it now. Put simply, our liberal religion is rooted in this positive view of human nature and potential. Right? If we're going to solve our problems, we have to believe in ourselves. God's not going to do it for us. A book of instructions isn't going to do it for us. We have to figure it out together. And that leads us to the humanistic ethic that all persons and people have inherent worth and dignity, that positive view, and should be treated as such. which can only be accomplished again through those three principles: freedom, reason, and tolerance. Those are the tools, those are the techniques. This is the wisdom and ethic that first emerged during the age of antiquity. Right? When human beings first started to try to understand the world in natural terms, they had to trust in their natural abilities, their inherent human abilities, to figure it out. That led to a positive view of human nature that has expanded in this mindset ever since. So it started in the age of antiquity, it was rediscovered during the Renaissance, flourished during the Enlightenment, and needs to be revived again today with the help of our liberal religion, because we are the keepers of liberalism. We're the only keepers of liberalism around today. And this is the only technology that has ever allowed society to advance. When it degrades, society degrades. So we are needed. To accomplish this, us liberals not only have to understand and articulate these values to others, but must most importantly demonstrate them in our own lives and interactions. In other words, we of all people should treat one another respectfully. Treat others respectfully, especially those with whom we disagree. Toward this end, I've also often addressed some of the tools and techniques that we have for doing so. Other tools and techniques. Most recently, I addressed this in my sermon, Unfolding Ourselves, How to Become Fully Human, in which I talked about our ethical duty to continue improving throughout our lives by developing our moral character, emotional intelligence, intellectual honesty or integrity, and a philosophy of life. I particularly appreciate a sentence from that sermon stating that emotional thinkers are desperate to convince everyone else they are right. Intellectual integrity wants us most of all to be honest with ourselves. That's the difference. Do we cling to our ideas, or are we constantly asking ourselves, am I only fooling myself? And that's how we evolve. We can't evolve if we don't ask ourselves what's wrong with our own thinking. So that's a pretty succinct rule of thumb, that when we are desperately trying to convince others that we are right, we're not being rational or honest with ourselves. The more strongly we moralize our opinions, the more we're being guided by our emotions. The more we are rationalizing what we want. In my sermon, Reality is the Only Thing That's Real, or is it? I used emerging virtual reality technology as a catalyst for questioning our paradigms about what we believe is real and true. We can't fully unfold if we don't get out of our own way. Right? If we don't break through the husk. If we aren't willing to question the beliefs that make us feel most secure. Fear of change tempts us to become conservative in our thinking and behaviors, I said. Embracing such uncertainty, on the other hand, is what makes us progressive and leads to progress. Last July, I also gave a sermon entitled The Compulsion to Convince. I'm sure all of you remember that one. About our instinctive need to feel we are right. And that when this happens, it is our ideas, our memes, that are in control of us, not the other way around. Right? Our ideas can become parasites that move us like puppets through the world. And I know about puppets. I talked a lot about how emotional intelligence can give us the tools to overcome this compulsion to be right, but also how our liberalism may also be enough to do so. Right? This is one of the benefits of liberalism, this emotional intelligence. I said, for when we believe all people should be free to express themselves, including those we disagree with, no matter how vehemently, we are able to override the mimetic instinct to dominate others. When we believe all people should be free, we of all people do not want to dominate them. When we require empirical and well-reasoned evidence for our beliefs so that we are less likely to merely rationalize our emotions, then we can more easily let go of those memes that no longer serve us. Even the most insistent and enduring memes. And when we are tolerant, we assure our communities and societies that we can live in peace no matter our differences. So that's a big help. This theme was continued in my March sermon, Bringing Up Our Brainchild, Real Life and the Omnipotence of Thought, in which, using Steven Pinker's language, I distinguished between the mythology mindset and the reality mindset, the latter of which is a product of our liberal heritage. We, children of the Enlightenment, embrace the radical creed of universal realism, Pinker says. We hold that all our beliefs should fall within the reality mindset. We care about whether our creation story, our founding legends, our theories of invisible nutrients and germs and forces, our conceptions of the powerful, our suspicions about our enemies are true or false. That's liberalism. We care if what we believe is true or not. We want to know. Am I deceiving myself? It's like that character in the movie The Matrix. Remember, he'd been freed and he betrayed all of his friends so that they would put him back in the Matrix and he wouldn't know. So he could enjoy the taste of a nice steak. So I could give other examples of this, but for now I think it's enough just to point out that in addition to addressing the many problems we face, I try to offer such practical advice for living the best we can, especially in the face of adversity. And I can't do all of this in one sermon, but I do so through multiple sermons over time, which is why a lot of themes keep coming back up. I've particularly enjoyed breathing renewed life into the timely, if not timeless, sermons of my renowned predecessor here at UUCS, the Reverend John H. Dietrich, the father of religious humanism, who was here back in the early part of the 20th century. Little did I know that when I began this project of editing and delivering some of his sermons, that they would be so significant for us today. In What is a Liberal?, written in the 1930s, Dietrich spoke of a false kind of liberalism, which I think is precisely the insidious mindset that has infected the Unitarian Universalist Association today. He says, this is liberalism that makes exaggerated claims on behalf of humanity and stakes the whole cause on some one particular reform. According to this view, humanity has been through the centuries the victim of unjust laws and institutions, and might realize utopia tomorrow were only the clutches of a vampire minority, the privileged class, relaxed. 1930s. And this type of liberalism usually has its one patent nostrum, its one universal cure-all by which humanity may thus be freed. Today, this universal cure-all is a singular approach to social justice that is intolerant of others, that is illiberal because it is intolerant of others, punitive of dissenters, segregationist in its approach, and is based upon the same self-righteous and authoritarian thinking that motivated the founders of Soviet Russia and Maoist China. Been there, done that. In the other of Dietrich's sermons I've shared so far, The Kind of Salvation Man Needs, the father of religious humanism argues that we don't need a savior. We don't need a savior, but many saviors. And in this sense, every man and woman living today, he said, may become a savior, insofar as they devote their lives to that which makes for the welfare of humanity. Be faithful and true in every respect. Stand by the principles of right as you see them. Be honest and fearless. See what you can of the true and the beautiful and the good, and stand for those things, fearing neither what the crowd may think nor what the crowd may do. For the person is a Savior who, fearing neither the hatred of others for one's persistence, nor being induced to desert their ranks by the blandishments of flatteries of the world, follow truth and justice whithersoever they lead. As you can see, I've spent most of the year delving into history, into the past, in order to better understand the present. How we got here, and what old truths are to be remembered. As an old Taoist proverb says, if one dwells on the past, then one robs the present. But if one ignores the past, then one may rob the future. The seeds of our destiny are nurtured by the roots of the past. I believe this is true of Unitarianism, that if its present problems, I should say that its present problems are because we have forgotten its rich history, and its future will depend upon us rediscovering it. So that's what I'm trying to do these days, today, for all of us, and for the sake of our liberal religion and the whole world that needs it if we are to get past this terrible period of stagnation and begin to make true progress by unfolding the larger potential of our species. But I must admit, the past does drag me down at times. The past is weighty. It has gravity. I'd rather be focusing on the future. I've not spoken much this year about technology and the promise it's bringing to us, even though it's the subject that I find most personally uplifting and inspiring these days. Nevertheless, duty calls, and I'm content to do what I must to be of most benefit to our congregation, to our religion, and to our world. In all, I've given 37 sermons from this pulpit during the past year, not counting the many I've given elsewhere during my Sundays off. Of them all, there are 3 that stand out as particularly meaningful to me. The Mr. Rogers Neighborhood Intergenerational Service we did just this past May was incredibly moving. I believe that if there is any truth to the belief that there are angels among us, Mr. Rogers is the proof. Another important sermon for me was Misappropriation or Mongrelization? Why I choose the latter, which I delivered on March 12th. It was about the false belief that human beings must be kept separated from each other based upon our identities, and that it is morally wrong to us to borrow from each other's cultures, which is humanly impossible. Here I will only cite the Salman Rushdie quote that inspired me to give this sermon. Those who oppose the novel most voraciously today are of the opinion that intermingling with a different culture will inevitably weaken and ruin it. I am of the opposite opinion. The Satanic Verses celebrates hybridity, impurity, intermingling, the transformation that comes of a new and unexpected combinations of human beings, cultures, ideas, politics, movies, songs. It rejoices in mongrelization and fears the absolutism of the pure. Melange, hodgepodge, a bit of this and a bit of that is how newness enters the world. It is the great possibility that mass migration gives the world, and I have tried to embrace it. The Satanic Verses is for change by fusion, change by conjoining. It is a love song to our mongrel selves. Finally, my most captivating sermon of the year, at least for me, was the one I recently gave entitled, God is a Weak Force. Magical Thinking and the Problem of Evil. In it, I posit that the reason we all experience meaningful coincidences that make it sometimes seem as if must be an invisible or benevolent force at work in our lives, and yet there is also an obvious amount of suffering and evil, is because love is a fundamental quality of the universe, right down to its quantum particles. Right? That which cosmologists and physicists call allurement, attraction. Yet, like gravity, love is a weak force. It is enough to bring us together and to hold us together in difficult times, just like gravity, the weakest of all forces, is enough to hold planets in space amidst the darkness and the coldness. The dark, the cold, the suffering, the evil is still there. But somehow love pulls us together just when we need each other most. We can't always prevent bad things from happening, but we can be with each other when they do. So that we don't need to endure it all alone. This is a concept I want to spend more time with, maybe even write a book about, along with some of the other heretical ideas that I have. So whether I'll get to that right away or not, I'm looking forward to continuing to supply this historic pulpit in the year ahead, and I'm confident that I'm not going to run out of things to say. Thank you. Thank you.
Our world is one world. What touches one affects us all. The
For our benediction today, these words again from Eugene Genlin. Experiencing is that which is changing, is not equivalent to generalizations, and soon allows the creation of a new aspect that does not fit. Amen. Blessed be. Salam alaikum and shalom.
Shalom Havarim, Shalom Havarim, Shalom, Shalom, Shalom Havarim, Shalom Havarim, Shalom, Shalom.
Really? Yeah. At a Unitarian? Yeah. Oh, interesting. That's cool.
Yeah, so I kind of come in with the philosophy of body, and I'll sing.
Yeah, you have a lovely. You make a sound.
Oh, that's good. It feels really good.
Once again, and to stop, yeah.